Welcome back to America Decides. Susan Glasser, my old friend, joins us now. She's a staff writer at The New Yorker. Susan, great to see you. Thanks for stopping by. President Biden in Europe for D-Day, and we're all thinking about D-Day 80 years on, but it's also an important moment for a president who has long focused on foreign policy. What are you paying close attention to as you watch Biden abroad?
Yeah, I mean, this is quite a remarkable trip. I mean, I know it comes in the middle of this election year, but just to take a step outside of that, right? Biden, already 81 years old, is almost certainly he is the last American president who will have been alive when D-Day occurred. He is in many ways the last American president who is kind of carrying the torch for this era of what has been called the American century that resulted in the aftermath of the U.S. victory in World War II and defeat of Nazi Germany. And, I think that it resonates for Biden and for the remnants of his generation in a way that perhaps is lost on many younger Americans. But it's an event that shaped his worldview, and so I think it's really significant for him to be there and to mark the passing of the living memory of that time.
Susan, you and Peter Baker have written some terrific books over the years, including a fascinating study of Russia and the rise of Vladimir Putin. How do you believe Putin, as this war unfolds in Ukraine, is watching President Biden and assessing Biden's articulation of what you just outlined, those themes about the American century and traditional foreign policy?
Well, a couple points to make on that, Bob. First of all, Putin, I should say, has taken that cult of victory in World War II and obviously the Soviet Union and Russia as its successor state. World War II victory has become almost the foundational myth of Putin's Russia too, but in a very different way. He has perverted the memory of that war to justify, in a way, his invasion of his neighbor in Ukraine. He calls Ukraine's first and only Jewish president somehow a Nazi, and uses this cult of World War II victory to rally and militarize the Russian people. So he has a very different take on the continuing resonance and legacy 80 years after the fact of World War II. He also, of course, consistently ignores or diminishes the U.S.-Soviet partnership that was the key to winning the war. In the Russian view of the war, it was all about the incredible Russian sacrifices that led to the victory. And there's very little narrative, by the way, about D-Day in Russia. If you go there, it's a huge story for us in the West, and basically not at all in Russia in terms of the story of World War II. How does that relate to today? And your question, I believe that Vladimir Putin thinks that unlike the Allies in World War II, the United States today is too inwardly divided, and it does not have what it takes to stay the course and pushing back against Putin in Ukraine or elsewhere.
And just quickly here, stepping back, looking at President Biden's executive order on immigration, you've written extensively about the Reagan era, a great book on James Baker, the former chief of staff to Reagan. This is an issue that vexed Reagan. It's an issue that now vexes President Biden. What do you make of the president's latest move, quickly?
Ronald Reagan was a supporter of legal immigration to the United States, and there was a very significant 1986 bipartisan bill that Reagan signed, very different than Donald Trump and today's Republican Party, which is, taken immigration demagoguery at its core of Trump's message. I think that, for Biden, it's late in the day to take this kind of action. He will disgruntle a certain number of his allies on the left without in any way achieving any converts among those who say that immigration is their big issue. Those are probably people who are already with Donald Trump. Will it be effective from a policy point of view? I don't know, because it's going to be tied up in the courts almost certainly.
Susan Glasser of The New Yorker, always appreciate your insights in your writing. Thank you.
Thank you.